Call our 3:30 agenda session to order. Can I get a motion on the minutes, please? Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions on tonight's agenda items? We don't have anything. Oh yeah, we do have things on first reading. If you have any questions, please hit your light. Councilman Ledford.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. May I ask Councilwoman Knoll if our planning item for first read, this has been on a deferral, a planning item, are we good to go?
We are good to go.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that very much.
Terrific,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do I have any other questions? I currently have no lights. Okay, seeing no lights, we will move on to next week's proposed agenda. So please take a look at that. Let me know if you have any questions. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one under 6B, and it's the amendment to our short-term vacation rental. It's interesting that yesterday at Planning Commission, is my understanding, I know that we had one case, I think there were two cases, Councilman, that the people were requesting a commercial zone, but with the condition of residential use only and short-term vacation rentals. And my question, I guess, to the city attorney, those are opposed to each other, at least and I'm hoping that our amendment makes it clear enough that if you're rezoning something commercial with the condition of residential use only, that would eliminate the possibility of short-term vacation rentals. But I think in both of these, Karen, am I correct? Both of these, the condition had listed residential use only and short-term vacation rentals. So I'm wondering, I mean, at what point does that condition get removed? Does it get removed here, or does it get removed at, and I'm assuming, during the application process, I guess they present conditions at that point. At least these were presented with conditions at Planning Commission yesterday.
And I'm referencing my phone just to make sure, an email on my phone just to make sure. So we had 3 cases at Planning Commission yesterday that were related to commercial zones and short-term vacation rentals. One will come with a recommendation for a residential zone, which negates the short-term vacation rental. And 2 cases are coming with recommendations to rezone one has multiple conditions with conditions. So we have 2 coming forward that'll be commercial with residential and short-term vacation use only is one of the conditions.
So, and I'm guessing that maybe our ordinance wasn't clear prior, but with this amendment, would they even be able to make it to Planning Commission with that specific condition on it?
So I don't think the amendment that's on next week's agenda that we've discussed a couple times, that is only if there's a condition residential use only and it's not clear about short-term vacation rentals. So I think that the workaround for that is requesting a commercial zone but limiting it to residential and short-term vacation rentals, enabling them to do the short-term vacation rental use. So I think that it is acknowledgement that the commercial zone is the zone needed for an absentee short-term vacation rental, but that the whole realm of uses in the commercial zone, like a C2 or UGC, is more expansive than they would want to request as part of the rezoning request. So they're limiting just those uses, even though it's a full commercial zone. So I'm not completely answering your question, but I think that is the next step in the solution.
No, you're not.
Sorry, if with council's action saying as a commercial zone, residential use only means not an absentee. So the workaround is a rezoning to a commercial zone with allowing a residential use only and short-term vacation rental. So that's like the next step in the progression, I believe, which is why we have zoning cases now saying, okay, residential use only means no absentee. So I'm asking for short-term vacation rental now too. But it has to be in that commercial zone based on our ordinance.
So, Madam Attorney, I mean, it ought to be real clear.
I've never been involved in this, but I will take your question to Mr. Noblett.
Well, I think the intention of this council was you could only have short-term vacation rental where a motel could be located, where a motel could physically be built. I mean, I don't know, does our amendment need to say that? Because when you, in your condition, if you condition it to, I don't think I could condition it to residential use only and motel use, could I? Could I do that?
That could be done, but you're right, the current amendment doesn't do that. And the current amendment is intended to clarify for staff and in the ordinance what council's desire is. So we had drafted that text prior to getting these cases. So if council's desire is that commercial, if you don't have the use of a motel in a commercial zone, then you don't get an absentee short-term vacation rental.
I think that was the intent of this council when we passed that. I mean, and I think in everybody's mind, they were thinking basically commercial corridors. And then, then we would have to go define what a commercial corridor would be. And I don't know that we want to go that far, but it sounds like to me, even with this amendment, we're still not hitting the nail on the head as to what our intent is, because they should not be able to apply for short-term vacation rental unless they can have a motel in that spot.
And then, so we could draft, if directed, we have an alternate version number 2. We can revise the language in there that says so basically, it's not the condition use, but basically if the zoning with conditions does not allow a motel use, then there can be no short-term vacation rental. Unless you get a motel use, that's the only time you can have an absentee short-term vacation rental. So anytime, any use is restricted except for motels. Is that, so the desire being only when I can have a motel can I have an absentee short-term vacation rental?
Well, I think the bigger question is, if it's appropriate for a motel, then it's appropriate for short-term vacation rental.
And that's how we've been reviewing the zones as staff. We're reviewing them as commercial zones with the understanding that that's a full commercial zone coming before council as part of the rezoning request.
Because I wasn't a big fan of tying it to zoning anyway, partly because of this, is they'll still apply for a commercial zone to do the, and people apply for commercial zones all the time, don't misunderstand me, but specifically to do short-term vacation rentals, it just seems like you're calling it a workaround, and it seems like what we've sort of created is a workaround, when our intent, I think, was very clear. If it's not appropriate for a motel to be in that spot, then it's not appropriate for a short-term vacation rental. And I'm not sure we've still got the language that reflects that.
It doesn't currently, no. And so the only time, if all those zones allow motels, the only time you would start to limit zones would be through the use of conditions. So I think tweaking that language about when a condition says this, it means this, is still the best place to address what you're mentioning.
So I think what we need is maybe even an amendment, alternate version 3 to try to clarify this further for the cases that's going to be coming to us in the very near future.
And we can work with LDO to draft language and send some suggested language out.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Henderson, I agree with you 100% in the intent, and I think I'm hearing the same sentiments echoed here on the dais. So I think we're all in agreement. So if it does require an alternate version number 3, I would like to see that prepared. We are ahead of new TCA rules on putting that on the agenda for next week, I believe even. So if we can get that done ASAP, I think that was clarified. And also coming through PC, remember council does have the final decision on those zoning cases. So that was one.
It would just help us from having
Completely understand.
see those cases. It needs to be clear.
I totally agree. Thank
And
you.
we'll provide alternative language by tomorrow afternoon.
And we'll get our office to go ahead and make that alternate version through,
Yes,
once we receive the new language.
yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this council's goal was clarity for everyone, every stakeholder, and we're getting closer, so thank you. All right, do you have any other questions? On our 2-week agenda? No? All right, well then, let's go ahead and move on to future considerations then. We'll circle back to purchases in a few minutes, after we do future considerations. We have a handful of parks and public works purchases in our future considerations, as well as ag policy changes. Okay, seeing no questions, let's take a look, council, at our purchase recommendations for this evening. Do I have any questions on our purchases? We also have an RFP request from Economic Development on our agenda for this evening. Okay. I see no questions, so we are ready to move on. You all, we have the privilege of having a presentation this afternoon from HCD Ed Connect. If you guys could come on up to the podium.
Okay, great. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Oh, perfect. There they are. Coming your way, it looks like. Yay.
We're ready to go. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. It's great to be in front of you again. My name is Rachel Emond. Perfect. Thank you. I'm the Strategic Partnership Coordinator for Hamilton County Schools, and I'm thrilled to continue being the Program Manager for HCS Ed Connect and to be back in front of you today with our annual update here at the end of year 3 as we run into year 4 of this program. And I'm joined today with Jeff Milliner from the Enterprise Center and Evan Freeman from EPB, who will introduce themselves and talk to you a little bit today as well. So, of course, just quick overview, we are connecting nearly 17,000 students at this point through HCS Ed Connect to high-speed Wi-Fi, either through EPB or by connecting them to a hotspot. This continues to be a support for our students who have economic need, so we're identifying those students who are enrolled in free and reduced lunch, attend a school where all students have access to free and reduced lunch, or are identified by the state as needing economic support. Because of some reason or another, there's about 17 things that count them as economically disadvantaged. But that's a pretty significant number of our students here in Hamilton County Schools, and we continue to connect more every day. So just a quick overview of what it looks like throughout the city. What I think this map always shows us is that, first of all, our pockets of need are aligned with our pockets of connection. We are seeing that families that have a need continue to connect, which has been true since the beginning of this program and continues to be. But we're also seeing the need on the edges of our community that start to get a little bit more rural or suburban have just as much need as those folks there in the middle. There's a little bit of a bump, of course, in our urban core, but I think this continues to be a program that supports families and students across our community, regardless of the type of neighborhood that they're in. And that's something I hope all of you have heard Dr. Robertson's new strategic plan, Opportunity 2030, for Hamilton County Schools, where we specifically identify one of our 5 commitments is that every single community is served through Hamilton County Schools programs, and Ed Connect absolutely speaks to that. So just a couple of quick updates. We were really thrilled to be able to welcome in the new school year with Hamilton County Schools Ed Connect proclamation in partnership with the city Mayor Tim Kelly and County Mayor Weston Wamp, where we declared August 5th a day of digital opportunity for students and families. Specifically, we got to talk about why it was so important to be connected to high-speed internet as a first day of school resource. We know that students can't learn at home if they don't have access to the internet. That's just the way the world works at this point. And we also recognize that families who have internet at home have a better opportunity to connect with their teachers, to connect with their schools. So this just continues to be one of our resources that it's super imperative for students to have access to when they come back to us on the first day of school. So we're thrilled to be able to do that this year at our Back to School Bash with the city and the county. Of course, I think at this point, we're looking ahead to the future with Ed Connect, right? And what does it mean for our students as we really focus in on them being future ready? So you'll see our kind of tagline up there, connected, competitive, and life-ready graduates. And one of the primary ways that we know Ed Connect plays into that is it gives students the opportunity to search for scholarships, to apply for colleges, to apply for jobs, all of those things that they're going to start doing junior, senior year to get ready for graduation. Connecting to apprenticeship programs, taking ownership over their own 6-year planning process that they now start in middle school. This program continues to give students access, each and every student access to those supports at home. We know that those things aren't often happening during the school day, right? So this program becomes a significant resource beyond classroom learning, beyond our day-to-day math and English, which we know are also equally as important, but also continues to play in how we're supporting students beyond 12th grade, which is really exciting for us. And you all have heard us talk a lot about the ways that this impacts how teachers are able to provide supports for students. So we're not gonna continue to talk to you about that. We know you're experts on it at this point, but it just continues to be an excellent resource for our students and families beyond the classroom walls. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Milner, who's going to talk about research and community-wide impact.
Thank you. And thank you to the council so much. I'm Jeff Milner. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the Enterprise Center. And so just want to give a quick overview of some of the ongoing evaluative work that is happening alongside the project. For us, when we are invested in, when efforts like this are invested in, we want to make sure that money is being used well, that it's doing the things that we want it to do, but also that we could learn from that and do things better. So quickly, working in partnership with the Boston College Lynch School of Education, world-renowned, as well as our own Dr. Jennifer Ellis, who is on loan to NSF, but has been working with us on this project since the beginning. Multiple research methods, right? We are going broad and looking at school-wide data sets, attendance, we're looking at grades, and trying to find trend data, which starting in 2020, and some of the challenges with that data we're working through at the moment. But that's the point of this not being a one and done, but an ongoing evaluative process. Also going deep, making sure that we are doing with families and whole families, ongoing interviews, learning about the individual experience, and then in the middle, representative samples from phone surveys, making sure we're talking to folks who are connected, who chose not to connect, who we have not heard from in other ways, but reaching out to them as well. Boston College is particularly sensitive to the fact that they are from Boston, and we have a community advisory board that includes entities like Girls Inc., like Northside Neighborhood House, longstanding community partners with deep relationships in the community to help make sure we're asking the right questions. This work has a national profile, just presented at ISTE. Around the work that we're doing, it really is one of the first instances of a project that can say this is what changes when folks have access instead of this is what happens when students don't have access. And so the literature review that they've done and made available, Jeff talks too much. I think that's the real lesson here.
Speaking of access.
He literally unplugged us,
It's my gift, truly.
literally.
And so all of that and a report that we'll provide for each of you with a little bit more data on your specific districts. Happy to answer more questions, but also all of this is available at edconnect.bc.edu, making sure it's all publicly accessible because we know it has an impact outside of our borders as well. I've mentioned, we're looking at quantitative data. Some things that are really, really important. When we talk about parent engagement, parent involvement, access to the internet is facilitating this. It's resulting in better connected families, and we're seeing a bump. Qualitative data, again, these interviews, I think this is an important reminder from a recent one that some of those images that we saw in 2020 of students sitting in Taco Bell parking lots, that hasn't changed for some families, but it has changed here. As you can see in this story, it's also a reminder of the economic impact that this program has for families and dollars that stay in Chattanooga and Hamilton County. And as I mentioned—
Hold on. Can we get our screens turned back on, please? You can act out the story that you were.
I just assumed that I had talked too long, and it was like he is really using up all the time available.
So what's it a picture of?
Oh, so it is a picture of our team and folks from Hamilton County Schools, from EPB, from the Enterprise Center, volunteers at our Day of Digital Opportunity.
Okay.
For families at Back to School Bash. We were talking to and registering and getting folks connected in the
Okay.
moment. But it's connected to the idea of actionable, right? As we did surveying, we have trend data. We know, honestly, to the census block level, how we're doing it to the address level, how we're doing connecting families. What we're seeing in conjunction with the surveying is a median connection rate for Hispanic Latinx families, but in our survey data, a strong positive and the strongest positive correlation with understanding the value of internet access in the home. Those things should have lined up better. So one of the things that we did is use some of our operational funds to hire HCS's interpreters after hours to do additional calls to families to reach out, making sure that you're doing multilingual outreach, but additional help to help them through the registration process to see a bump on that. So just one example of what research data is doing to make sure that this program is not about good enough. It's about reaching everyone. It is about excelling. It is about setting a national standard. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Evan to talk a little bit about where we're headed.
Thanks, Jeff. And right now on the screen, there's kids dancing and celebrating and that kind of thing. Now, thank y'all for taking the time to let us come by. Just to hit on the long-term commitment and then the investment that you all as a council made into HCS Ed Connect. If you look around the country right now, Chicago as an example, their programs are starting to phase out. It was a COVID program and so run out of money. The Affordable Connectivity Program on the federal level, there's a lot of uncertainty around there, but we're really excited that this program is something that we know these students and families are going to have access to. And so we, from that education perspective and the workforce development perspective for those families are really good. And just again on there's a lot of talk across the country about the B program, which is about finding a way to connect everybody in America and make sure there's digital equity. Thanks to your investment, we're able to say that in Chattanooga that we're ahead of that curve and we're really a model this partnership. So again, thank you, and of course thank the Enterprise Center and Hamilton County Schools.
Thank you all very much. Council, there is a copy of this presentation in your email if you'd like to see the pictures and the data. I do have some questions on the board. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, thank you for the commitment and the teamwork. When I first heard about this, and Evan, I appreciate you inviting council to come and be part of those presentations at EPB and talking about this, especially even going out, Rachel, to the rural areas which is something that I've talked about with EPB as well. That's great, because if we don't have this access, we hinder not only success or competitiveness, but the opportunity is just, it's not there. I mean, I see I have a 14-year-old, started high school today. I got it. It's not a question whether or not you have to have it. And your commitment to providing it, especially when you talk about phasing this out, that never needs to be an option. We need to support and keep this going, because it is vital to the success of every student in Hamilton County, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, looks like the board is quiet. Thank you all very much for your time. We appreciate your efforts and for joining us here.
Thank you.
Finally, to wind down this meeting, we have an important guest. Councilwoman Coonrod asked that Chief Murphy join us to speak about the officer-involved shooting on Friday. So Chief Murphy, if you would join us at the mic, please.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So just to give you kind of a broad overview, I cannot go into serious detail right now because it's not our investigation, but I can give you some broad overview of when and what happened. So this was Friday night at 3rd and Holtz Claw at 9:41 p.m. And so officers were at the Speedway, and they were indeed working a street crime-related detail. And the person that they were looking for was actually there. And at some point, when they went to go in and apprehend him, and I'm going to give you the names and everything because we've already released it to the media for everybody. So Mr. Hurd pulled out a weapon, and then gunfire exchange happened. I don't know the details. I don't know the order yet. But that is what happened and what initiated the exchange. So Officer Kelton Batterson was injured, shot in both arms. He was stable, released from the hospital that night, and Mr. Hurd died from his injuries. There were approximately 2 to 3 other officers involved in that exchange as well. Don't have all the details about their interactions with it. There was a couple of people that were at the gas station, so thank God, no innocent bystanders were at all affected by the exchange. But I want to emphasize again that TBI is the lead on this investigation right now. So we've given them everything that we've had evidentiary to be able to sort through what happened. And then at that point, what they do is they present their findings to the district attorney's office. And so I'm asking that, as terribly tragic as this is, that that we be patient through the process of this. And it's then at that point, once the DA's office receives it, then we'll at that point start looking at any administrative violations on our end with the people, the employees that were involved. So I don't know if there's any questions. I did make contact with Mr. Hurd's mother, and, we'll continue that conversation as long as she's comfortable with that. But if there's any questions that she needs outside of my scope, I will do my best to navigate and get those answers for her. But right now, my focus is on the family getting information first. And that's where my concern is that we make sure we get vetted information out to the family first before we go any further with this. And I don't know at what point we'll be able to go further with this, but right now my focus is the immediate family. So I don't know if you all have any questions about it.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Murphy. I do have a question, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, and you hit on it. What is policy or protocol in an officer-involved shooting for CPD to reach out to the affected family?
Yeah, I apologize, I left that. Wait a minute, to reach out to the family?
Well, to reach out to the family, yes.
Okay.
And you said you had reached out to him, and I just wondered what the process, the
Yeah.
protocol was like. Is that immediate, or is that
Yeah.
courtesy? What's the policy on that?
Yeah, so immediately the evening of the event, I was not there before the mother left the hospital. It was my understanding she got to the hospital. One of my assistant chiefs went there to try to make sure that the family was accommodated to whatever degree. Things like the hospital being on lockdown and whatever access they have, that's beyond our control as well. But she was trying to go there and, make sure she navigated for the family. She was gone by the time I got there. So I made contact with her, I believe, the night that they did the balloon release at the gas station. And since then is when I've been, whether it be text messaging or a call, whatever comfort level she has with that.
Well,
So there's no, so I think your question was, is there a protocol automatically, in?
yeah, is there a process in
Yeah.
a police-involved shooting?
Yeah.
What is the process, and not particularly this instant, but what is protocol for CPD to reach out to the family? Is that complimentary? I mean, I don't know if complimentary is the right word.
Basic
Customary.
humanity.
I'm sorry?
Basic humanity.
Yes, but I mean, so, I mean, that CPD would reach out to a family in an incident like this typically. Is that what you're?
That's what I would do. Yes, yes.
But you're saying there's not necessarily a policy in place that would call for that to happen?
No, not necessarily, no.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you for coming to explain. Like, I honestly didn't even know none of this had happened until I received an inbox from one of the family members, because I try to stay away from the news because it's only negative stuff more often than positive. But I'm glad that you did have the opportunity to reach out to the family, because that was their concern.
Yeah.
That she didn't get to see her son, and like you said, when hospitals got their own restrictions, then it's nothing that we can do as a council. You can do as a council, like that's the hospital. And my concern, I think that the community, they get so upset when shootings happen with police and community members, but they direct that anger towards council. And we're not investigators, we're not, attorneys or any of that thing. Only thing we can really do is listen.
Right.
But had they known, listen, ahead of time, TBI is the person that's investigating, so you can call them, you can hoop and holler and scream, however you're feeling towards them, or to the district attorney, Cody Wump, or let's call the chief of police, so you all can give them some kind of guidance. Now, because of their misconception, they're gonna fill up council and beat us down over something that we don't even control. And we've seen how the state legislature, they can preempt us on anything that we do, so we don't even have control when it comes to making different policies against the police. We don't even control that. But no one is saying, and when I said, listen, reach out to your state representatives if you want changes in policies with what's going on. I've not seen no video. I'm not saying that I'm for or against. I just want to operate on the facts, or whenever we do get the information released. And even tonight, as a council, we don't even have anything to answer their questions with.
Right.
But
That's a similar position that I'm in.
Right.
But, I'm the face of it and I own it. But I don't even have all the answers. I don't even have all the evidence, because we're not lead on the investigation. And I want to point out, do we want it fast or do we want it right? And I just need people to, within the reach of my ear, just being patient through this. I'm very much for everybody being heard in this and it being done properly. I get it. I mean, there's been a lot hurled at me as well, and I'm okay with that, because if people need answers, the best that I can either answer it or find you the answer, I will. And I think that I point out that, statewide, TBI does the officer-involved shootings for police agencies in the state. So that's also somewhat new, I guess, to people hear that. It's not anything like this is a special case that had to be transferred there. This is going to be normal protocol from now on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And this is not the first one they've handled as well for us.
Well, I appreciate you coming. Hopefully you can stick around at 6:00. I just, it's so much hatefulness that's spoken about the four Black council people that we don't care. or that we only care if it's our family member. I've had family members to lose their lives due to a different kind of violence, not from the police. But I do care about my community, whether if it's somebody in my family or somebody that's non-related, or if it's a police officer. I
Feel
care
the same
about
exact way.
the whole thing, because police officers, they have family members too. And in fact, I have a couple of sisters and brothers that serve on the force. That when they leave their home and their kids with, me overnight or with somebody else like that, they always have that, they may or may not make it back home.
Right.
And for people to say that kind of stuff and to get other people all emotionally and angry to where they want to cause an attack on us, that's my concern.
Yes.
Because, I'm too old to be having a fight.
Right, ma'am.
And who's
too.
protecting us? And
Right.
when people think, oh, well, we elected you to serve and do this and do this, but we weren't elected to be a punching bag, and we weren't elected for you to just, be nasty towards us. We're gonna do our job and what it is, but we need to make sure that we're protected too.
I totally understand, and I'm in the same boat.
Thank
And
you.
I've had a family member die in custody of a police officer, so I totally get it. And when it's happening to someone else, I totally get that they don't want to hear anything. Sometimes mostly don't even want to hear from me, as sympathetic, as I am and passionate about people, making sure that they get their answers, no matter what those answers look like. But right now, tensions are high, and the best I could do is just keep communicating to everyone.
That's it. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilwoman Coonrod covered my question with the presence of the chief at 6 o'clock. I appreciate you being here at 3:30, but I think 6 o'clock is where we're really going to need you.
Looks like we don't have any other questions, and I will just reinforce that point that Chief Murphy, we would appreciate it if you would join us at our 6 o'clock meeting. All right, looks like we are done for the days. You're lit up again, you sneaky sneak. Sorry, Councilwoman Coonrod. All right,
And you
Councilman
think it
Coonrod,
was
floor
on
is
it?
yours.
Yep, thank you. I'm glad that Ty and Chris was able to join us today, but I do have a couple of questions, if y'all don't mind just coming to the mic. All right, well, I just want to tell y'all, thank y'all. I really appreciate the work and the efforts that you're putting into the community center. And for me, I'm being pulled. We're gonna be honest, and I had a meeting with Don and Ryan earlier today. We get all this negative feedback from people that work at the community centers. I don't know what the issue is, but for me, it's important that we figure out what it is so we can move the agenda forward, right? And a lot of people upset. I do get, I've managed people before, and some people don't like accountability, especially when things been going one way and you want to try to move things to be another way, then you have those issues. But here's my ask of you, is that whenever you all make some kind of changes, if you can let council members know ahead of time, before it's sent to the staff or sent out publicly, so we can already be prepared, right, about the changes that's gonna happen, because I should have heard, or any of us should have been in the know from you all before I received an email or an inbox or a text to say, hey, did you know X, Y, and Z was taking place with our centers? I don't like to be caught off guard like that. I like to know what's going on, And so for Sister Jermaine made y'all sit down, but when he was over the centers, we done had this same conversation too. Like, we gotta be in the know about what's going on the front end, not on the back end. But then too, we gotta figure out how we gonna combat the way that the center staff are feeling, that they have low morale and all that old kind of stuff. I don't understand why, because if I was a facility manager in our centers, we'll have the Cronkite centers. It's all about how you make it. But I do want to address the hours publicly, because I'm sure they probably listening, and I've talked to Ryan them about it. My concern isn't the fact if anybody has any second shift job. My concern, like I've stated to them, is the safety of the communities, the areas or the centers that are open and staying late until 8 o'clock. But we have children, elementary kids, 6-year-olds, and that range, they need to be at home. 8 o'clock at night, they don't need to be still hanging around in our centers. We see time and time the data that we get, that the kids are coming to school sleepy, they still hungry, or they're not prepared. Our centers can only do so much. And honestly, as a parent, at those hours, the elementary kids, they need to be getting ready for bed. They need to spend time with their parents. From the time they get up, elementary students, they're going to school early in the morning. They coming home, going to a recreation center or wherever else that they're going. They're staying here to 8 o'clock at night. By the time they get home with their parents, when do they have that time to bond with their parent? Some parents working third shift. As you know, some going out to the nightclubs. They only have that small window. And I believe that request is not a bad ask to say, hey, let's look at the age group of the kids. And if we're gonna have the hours open based on what COVID number, prior to COVID, okay, that's cool. I'm sure you all probably got the data to say that. But what happens or what's in place if the parents aren't picking up these kids? It's happening now, even at 6 o'clock, but we're talking about 8 o'clock. And a lot of these areas are at risk, as you call them, high crime areas, and you're expecting these kids to walk home late night, 8 o'clock or so. So those are the things that I'm concerned about. I can't speak for the other council members. I know it was brought up that we at one point said, hey, why aren't these centers open up late? Well, my people go to the center. I can't speak for nobody else's. And when you're thinking about these kids and the responsibility that's gonna fall on that kid, when that parents say, well, they were supposed to be at the center at 8 o'clock at night. Like, what is I just need to know to make sure that we're covered, but really, we need those elementary students to go home earlier than 8.
Okay. So I think that it would probably be good for us to have a conversation offline with the community development management, as well as Ryan, just to make sure Chris and Ty, they do great work for the city, and I appreciate them being here today. But they are mid-level managers, and so typically when we engage with city council, we want to make sure that that's done at the administrator level or higher. So I think what we can do, Councilwoman Coonrod, to address your concerns is set up some time to talk with you, with the administrator, so that we can make sure that we answer all your questions.
That's fine, but they need to know that we appreciate them too. Because if they're the ones that's in our center, that's why I wanted them to come up here, but to address it. But I've spoken to Dunn and spoken to this, and I want to say this publicly. I'm not sure where or why our community center workers feel like they can't communicate to city council workers, and this word retaliation continue to come up. We need to talk about that to see why they're feeling like that they can't communicate or engage, because nobody that works for the city of Chattanooga should feel like retaliation is gonna happen. Nobody. We represent them as our constituents, even if they didn't work. I mean, they got a voice in the matter too, and it's not right to tell any staff member that, oh, don't talk to the city councilman. And that's maybe why people be looking like they on eggshells when we come around, like, don't say nothing, don't ask me no questions. But it's your job. If we're asking you questions, then just whatever it is, or we can go talk to the manager, but they should be able to communicate their problems and issues like anybody else. And it shouldn't be no kind of retaliation on their job or no threats or anything on their job. And that's what's being communicated to me, to saying that that's happening.
Right. So what we would typically want to do is to make sure that any employee who feels like there could be the prospect of retaliation on the job, to be able to communicate with human resources, because that's what human resources is there for. To your point about speaking to a council person, any employee within the city of Chattanooga should feel free to engage their council person. As an elected representative, every employee has the right to engage a council person, because that's part of the democratic process, right? And so we certainly are not encouraging, and I am certainly not encouraging employees to not talk to council people. But there is a specific process through human resources if an employee feels like they are the victim or the target of some sort of retaliatory attempt. And so I would just encourage us to make sure that we remind employees of that so that we can make sure that we're addressing anything along those lines in the right and appropriate manner.
All right, I'm just making sure, but just know, the next time one of them tell me that they've been told specifically, we're gonna have that meeting with that employer and address why they feel that way, because it just can't keep happening.
Well, you are entitled to have whatever meeting you want, but we will have other processes and procedures that we do through human resources that we will make sure that we do
Yeah, that's
according
fine.
to city policy.
Yeah, that's fine, but according to what you just said, any staff can communicate to
that's their
council if
democratic
they
right.
have any concerns or anything.
That is their right.
And if they feel like they've been retaliated against, I'm not HR, I'm the council representative for them.
Right.
But I want to make sure that you all, no one is threatening retaliation against them if they communicate their issues that they're having within their department.
Sure. And as I said, you are free to have whatever conversations you want, but we have another process
Well,
that
thank you.
will work its way
We
through human
understand that, just as
resources.
long as you know where we stand at.
And as long as you know where the chief
And
stands,
we
then we'll be
will,
good.
we will meet further about the community centers.
That's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I got.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Coonrod. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned to 6.